Welcome to the Sleeping Barber podcast.
And now it's time for the post-pod with V and Mark.
There it is.
I was trying to do a radio thing there. What do you think?
I think you naturally have this amazing radio voice.
Yeah, right. Yeah. 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 Well, Arry.
Easy to mind, easy to find.
Yeah.
If I had to summarize our conversation with him, I think that's what it comes down to. It was you talked about this during the episode, but we have not talked to anybody really about mental and physical especially physical availability in this capacity.
Yeah.
And I know before we hit record here, we were just kind of sharing like all the different stories that start coming to mind the moment you start applying that lens, and it's like, oh yeah, this is why this product no longer exists, or this is what they're doing to me in the supermarket, where they're forcing me to buy, chips because they're putting it everywhere for me to potentially, constantly have that conversation in my head. But I think it's such an not understated, undercommunicated somehow, something we lose sight on as marketers, just the importance of this, because it doesn't matter how great your marketing is, if it's not physically available, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really, I think the difference is between having conversations about the mental side versus the physical side is that we all can touch and feel the products.
Totally.
Right. Like we've all gone shopping for something, and we've all had that experience where like I'm trying to buy something, but if they don't have it in my size, I could buy it online, but what a pain in the butt. There's a store across the hall that's got something similar, like, or the exact same thing. And so we've all had that experience. And so I think the ideas of the laws of marketing actually become more tangible when you talk about the physical availability side, whereas it's harder on the mental availability side, because a lot of stuff we're talking about is happening inside of people's brains and you can't see it happening. You know what I mean?
100%. And I think it's the physical availability part is what makes everyone an expert in advertising.
Yeah.
Because you go through that process of physically searching or finding that product, and that innately as consumers makes us the focus groups of one, if you will. Well, this worked on me, this worked on someone else, right?
Yeah.
It allows us to create those opinions that often are somewhat myopic, I guess you would consider, but
Sure.
because it is so tangible, it is it's the easiest thing that you can kind of go back on.
Yeah. The other one, like going back to the Starbucks example, it honestly was, it was really, I think I said mind blowing before. I'll stick with that word. It was what is that? A compound word? I don't know what that is. Anyway, hyphenated word.
I think it's hyphenated.
But it is just like, yeah, it's Starbucks. I think of it as coffee. And then secondarily, like some snacks and maybe some sandwiches and stuff like that. Maybe some breakfast stuff. But primarily coffee. And then when you start thinking about all the kinds of products that they have within a single store, like there's the drip coffee, I was looking it up for some research. There's a custom coffee that somebody made that's $178 from a Starbucks.
What?
It's insane. There's okay. I'll put a link into it. I don't know how they did it, but it had something like 78 shots of espresso. I'm just trying to look for my notes. Yeah, 170 espresso shots in a drink. It was $178.
Is it called a kill shot?
Yeah, maybe. It had a word, it had a name and everything too. But but yeah, so you've got customization that can happen. You've got the drip coffee, you've got all the lattes, you've got all the other kinds of drinks that they have there. Plus then you've got like the bags of coffee, ground or not ground, in the whole bean form.
Merchandise.
Yeah, like, and then you go to like the grocery store and Starbucks stuff is there. They got all different flavors of pods. They got all the instant. Then you go to a grocery or a corner store and they've got 5 or 6 different kinds of Starbucks drinks. It's kind of fascinating when you think about where Starbucks is. It's not just the store, and it's also your app, right? Like a whole bunch of people have that on their app. They pre-order and they never have to wait in line when they go to the store. Like, all those things work together to make it easier for a company or a customer to buy.
Well, I would argue if you do physical availability right, it helps continuously to build mental availability.
Totally. Because it's kind of like that. I think Mary told us about this, where a brand's equity is 25% the ads and 75% the experience.
Yes.
So physical availability has a huge component of building that mental availability that people have, because it's stickier. Like, once you use something, you have a better recall, more concrete memories of it.
Yep. And I think ads at the end of the day just help with recall more than anything. Right? If we go back to like the 25% that Mary was talking about, that's all really we can influence. And 75% is coming from all the different other touch points. So sales side, the physical locations of those products, or whatever it is for every business. I think that's something that we overlook, and we overemphasize the importance of the marketing side, where it's just one small part of it.
Yeah, I think that's true. And, we had a couple of case studies. Like, Arry had that example of his hair product. I had the example of Apple. Actually, that was an interesting one for me.
Yeah.
But the Tropicana one is the sort of classic case study. Like, it makes me really, like, if ever given the chance to change the brand logo, I don't know that I ever would. And distinctive assets is more than a logo, I mean, but just the logo, the packaging, the colors, the distinctive assets, like in the case of Tropicana, the orange getting stuck with the straw.
Yep.
Like, I would be so afraid to fuck it up. Like, I wouldn't want to change it. Like,
I'm with you.
I really think it's probably a horrible idea.
I'm with you. And it's funny because I think it's when Roger Martin talked to us about it first, where I really didn't think about it that way before.
Yeah.
But I'm 100% with you now. Like, it's the last lever you want to pull, and you better have a good reason that you're going to pull that. Like, I brought the example of Aunt Jemima.
Totally.
I think that is one of those examples where, like, yes.
Washington Redskins.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure.
But those are the exceptions.
Yeah.
Like Eddie Bauer moving or taking cursive away from their logo.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I know. I don't. Yeah. And it's funny because people justify it in all kinds of ways. But yeah, it is dangerous.
100%.
Yeah. It's really dangerous. Did anything else stick out to you, V, is for, like, either in the terms of the presence, the relevance, in terms of the product offerings, prominence?
Well, I think one thing that I really liked is, a few things that I wrote down. So, like, he talked about presence, prominence, and portfolio, and those three things really kind of play into the importance of physical availability. But what I loved is his point around that it also goes beyond physical availability goes beyond just the distribution of the product.
Yeah,
right?
That was good.
And I think that, again, is another little nugget where you're like, you don't think about it that way, because the naming implies that it's like making a product just simply physically available. But we talked about the leasing plans, right? So that has nothing to do about the product itself. What it has to do is how we're increasing its ability for you to purchase it as a consumer. So I think looking at it that way, just outside of distribution, I think is an important call out too.
Yeah, that was a really good point. Yeah, and that's the part for me that was like such a really fascinating thing. Once I got it stuck in my head, I could buy this thing on a lease.
Yeah.
I'm pointing at my computer, this thing.
Yeah. This thing.
Yeah. I was like, well, that's perfect. Like, it's 0% financing. Why would I not do that? Like, it's $60 a month instead of it being $2,100 all at once.
Yeah.
I'm like, that, from a business point of view, I'm like, that makes way more sense. I can distribute the costs and blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, well, forget it. I'm not buying something for $2,000, $3,000, whatever it is, and
Yeah.
shelling out that cash all at once today.
Yeah.
But even though the 16-inch monitor was available, like physically it was there, I just wouldn't pay for it because I didn't like. It was crazy. Like it's such a
Another thing that just dawned on me, and I wish I would have thought about it during the conversation. If you remember our conversation with James and James Hankins and
JP Castlin,
JB Castling, we're talking about digital availability, right? As essentially being like that third thing where they're really kind of creating that idea that it's not the physical and digital are not the same thing.
Yeah.
I know right now we're using, or at least Arry and the Ehrenberg-Bass Institute look at physical availability for just anywhere the product is made available and whatnot. But I think I should have thought about it earlier, because I would have loved to hear his take on like the idea of digital availability.
Well, we did talk about that a bit, but like we didn't. I know that James originally had said like it's not the same thing, and I think the Aurenberg-Bass position is that it is the same thing, because like an app on your phone is essentially digital availability.
Yeah.
But even at that, like I thought it was an interesting point, because it really, like, whether you want to call it digital or physical availability, you know, the debate doesn't matter that much, in the sense of like it's another place to buy it. Yeah. Right. And so you have to be where there are people where they are buying things. And so call it what you will, but it matters to get out of your own way to make it easy for people to get the thing that they're trying to get. And to come back to your point at the very beginning, you know, easy to find, easy to buy.
And I think you're right. Like, think about a lot of the digital ads. We talked a little bit about that with Arry as well, but there's like shopping ads now. So basically you can just buy the product right within, say, Facebook or Instagram. So the shop in shops, digital shop in shops, where you're not even leaving and going to another website now. You're just purchasing within the platform.
Yeah.
Yes, obviously that is maybe a digital product, but at the end of the day, what is it doing? It's reducing the friction to purchase.
Yeah.
So it's a part of the idea of it being physically available when you think about it, just beyond the distribution of the product. So anyways.
Yeah, you don't want, so I'm sorry, there's so many other things I want to talk to you about now. I'm just kidding. I'm like, yeah, and another thing. But wait, going back to some of these conversations we had about ROAS and ROI, right? You can have let's say in a 10-kilometer radius, you could have an excess of mental availability. It's possible to do that, but but underserve that market with physical availability.
Yeah.
And so if you want to increase your ROI or ROAS on ads, you could easily just cut spend.
Yep.
Right? Or you could increase your physical presence. Yep. And that will more than likely drive your ROI, because you have this excess like mental availability. You're reaching more people. There's a whole bunch of people that know about you that physically can't get to your product.
Yep. Yeah.
Like it's a different solution to the same kind of problem, but it takes this sort of team approach to solving the problem, as opposed to, well, marketing's, you know, the only player in the space that can do anything about ROI. So let's just cut what we have and that will fix things.
Yeah, I think the only thing to that is like the cost. So the cost of opening up more physical stores potentially versus, you know, trying. And this is probably where a lot of organizations kind of get hung up on. It may cost me less, even though, again, going back to that conversation with JP and James, is like, not everyone on an e-commerce site is factoring in all the costs the right way. It's actually very expensive to increase your distribution from a digital perspective as well. But whichever lever you decide to pull, I think it all needs to be rooted in that you've been able to build a level of mental availability to make the case to start rethinking how physical availability is, how you expand that. Sorry.
Yeah, and they work in tandem, which is,
they do,
like they help, one helps the other. I think it was
reciprocal.
I don't think we recorded this, but I think we talked about it. Yeah. The part around how like one of the problems with the funnel or the idea of just the funnel, let's
The
call it.
linear.
Yeah, it takes the whole act of growing a brand and puts it squarely on the shoulders of marketing.
Yeah.
When in reality, like you could be doing all the things right, running all the right ads, and the person gets to a store or gets to your website and it's not available in their in their city or in their language or doesn't have the right size or whatever. And so, you know what I mean? Like there's so much
Do you remember
value in thinking about it this way.
We did the presentation to Pod, I guess a month ago or so. And what was interesting about going through that exercise was we brought up Cadbury, the garage ad.
Mm-hmm.
And we highlighted the great execution that it was from a creative perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing that even within the images, it was showing like how Cadbury with the distinctive purple, like assets,
the
like,
wrapping,
not only how's that the wrapping, not only how is it positioned, say, in like the convenience stores, but it's where it is in the points of the supermarkets that help add that additional layer of familiarity, right?
Totally.
Or mental availability, call it whatever you want. But I think that's showing how an ad could transcend just, can kind of be the bridge between both worlds, I think is I think the role of marketing at the end of the day is helping build and tie mental availability to the physical availability of the products that you will experience as a consumer.
For sure. Yeah, it's fascinating. I thought it was a great conversation. It was really fun. It was a fun conversation too, because it was
a fun one.
Yeah, it was good just to kind of talk about real stuff that you've touched and felt and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's because like it's not an early morning interview for us, it's like closer to the end of the day, or maybe our brains aren't firing the way they would have. But no, I genuinely enjoyed the conversation. And Arry, if you are listening to this, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. It was genuinely greatly appreciated.
And so with that, V, I will leave it to you to. Well, I would say we go chase profitability, but this is the part where you just jump in. Yeah, and then you come in with like this gusto, and you're like,
go chase profitability. That's just what we do.
We're nailing this.
Fell flat.
Oh, it's okay. It's this is good. All right, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Have a great evening, man.
You too. Bye.